So welcome to all of you who are here now. I'm sure a few more will join us here as we get started. Thank you to the USGBC LA for inviting us to give this presentation here today. And we, as you can see, are the Emerging Professionals Committee. We are the four co-chairs. The mission of the committee essentially is to connect students and new professionals with the LA green building community. We do that through networking events with other committees, through educational presentations like this one. We do panel discussions with local architectural, construction, engineering industry leaders. And I am Mike Thompson. I'm the HR director of Howard Building Corporation, one of the sponsors of the event this year. Feel free to visit our booth at the exhibitors section. I've been in the industry for, I guess it's been about 30 plus years, the last 18 of which here, and largely supervision and project management and construction. And the rest of the committee, Grant, Lenah, and Hannah, can introduce themselves.
Cool. Yep, I'm Grant Waldron. I work at Gaia. I do project management there, so I help out on lead projects, living building challenge projects, carbon footprint and life cycle assessments. We're a sustainability consulting firm, and I'm also the one of the co-chairs with the Emerging Professionals Committee. So if anyone's interested in learning about any of those things, there's my email. Happy to chat.
I'm Lenah Lankhaar. I'm also a project manager at a sustainable production, also known as ASAP. Most of my work involves well certifications, health safety rating, well portfolio. And yeah, excited to be here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah. I am definitely newer to the sustainability industry and definitely an emerging professional. I work full-time for a company called UCB Zero Waste, helping large food manufacturing companies and CPGs get zero waste to landfill. And I also do some work for ASAP in office administration. So let me know if you have any questions at all.
All right. Yeah. And I'll finish up our intro here. We're going to cover a number of certifications and accreditations today, from Living Building Challenge and BRAME to one we're more familiar with, LEED here as members of USGBC. But before we get into that, I also wanted to mention a new participant to this event this year, which is Passive House. They also have a booth in the exhibitors section, and it's not a new rating system. They're just I think new to the event this year. I think it got started in University of Illinois, I believe, in the late 70s, but it's focuses on envelope integrity, super insulation, heat control, heat recovery, and it's largely centered around systems efficiency and occupant comfort, like a lot of the systems we're going to cover today. So let's
just to piggyback on that. I think one thing, this list is not exhaustive of these sustainability certifications. There are many out there, more pop up all the time. I think that's just shows the growing trend of the industry. So these are the ones that we've picked to cover based on our expertise. So there are definitely more out there. So keep your ears out, and you'll learn a lot more. So with that, we'll dive in, and we'll start with LEED.
Yeah, so LEED, I think everybody here probably knows, is leadership in energy and environmental design. Projects get certified, professionals get accredited. It's been really transformative to the construction industry through federal project adoption in the mid-2000s, and progressive cities doing the same with large projects like Los Angeles did with 100,000 a foot and above projects required to be LEED certified, and then I think they went down to 50,000 foot projects, and other cities started to adopt some of the same kind of requirements and minimum recycling, recyclable material content on projects and construction waste recycling and things like that. Ultimately, until the state of California adopted CalGreen, the building code, which is pretty obviously based on LEED. A lot of the requirements that used to be something really unique to LEED projects, like just keeping the site clean, keeping ductwork covered until AC systems are on, working towards water and energy efficiency and stuff like that. Those are a lot of minimal kind of requirements of the state of California now. It's a point-based system. As you can see here, there's a number of different certification levels, from just simply LEED certified, meeting kind of the minimum prerequisites and a few other points beyond that, all the way through silver up to platinum. It has a number of different focus areas, which you'll be able to see here on the next slide, which is a kind of project point checklist. Includes sustainable sites and sustainable materials, reuse and recycling, water and power efficiency, environmental cleanliness, air quality, those sorts of things. It's evolved quite a few times over the years. You can see probably not too much design difference here in a couple of projects that I've worked on. One is a superintendent, I think 15 years ago, Harley Ellis. I think that was a couple of years before I became a LEED AP, all the way to Viacom on the upper left, which was one of the last projects I did as a project manager. There's not too many, massive design differences, except there's a lot more utility in lighting controls and daylighting and shade controls and things like that. So it's pretty rare to see, some of the ultra bright constant on LED lighting that you might see on the bottom right here at Harley Ellis compared to Viacom. But some of the key differences has just been the improvements in materials and adhesives. Looking at the cork floor there at Harley Ellis, I think after probably the 4th or 5th weekend of trying to get it to stick down with water-based glue, we gave up and just glued it to the floor to the concrete with mastic. Those kind of problems were non-existent, even just a couple of years later, and that's pretty unheard of now. The materials and the adhesives and all the systems are quite advanced, and they've been in production for a long time and made a lot of improvements. Accreditations like mine as a LEED AP, it used to be a kind of lifetime accreditation. Not too long after I got mine, they moved to probably a more realistic system of continuing education and kind of constant accreditation and need for involvement on projects and kind of continuing education. But there's a number of different ones. There's just a couple shown here on this slide, so you can actually see them and read them. These are some of the more common, the operations maintenance ones, the LEED building design and construction, or the green associate. You meet a lot of green associates here around town. And I think Grant is going to continue on with Living Building Challenge.
Cool. Yeah. So the next certification we'll talk about is Living Building Challenge. That's put on by the International Living Future Institute. Again, a lot of these certifications came after LEED, some before, but they're all based on very similar pillars, looking at your energy, your water, your materials. Living Building Challenge can be applied to all building types. But one of the unique things about Living Building Challenge is it's a performance-based certification. So once you've built your building, you've gone through your requirements. It requires 12 months verifying that your building is able to operate both net zero and producing more energy than it uses, and also treating water on site and having 100% of your water captured and treated on site. One of the things that Living Building Challenge is trying to do is trying to be a kind of regenerative building. It's going beyond code, going beyond green buildings, going beyond the high performance LEED buildings, and really trying to hit that inflection point where buildings no longer take from the environment, but start to give back to the environment. We're talking about Living Building Challenge, kind of on the far right, but they do have some kind of lower certifications where you can just certify on a specific core category, or they call them petals. That could be energy, water, materials, carbon, or energy. This is the matrix or scorecard that you're going through for Living Building Challenge. You'll see the petals are very similar, kind of modeled after how LEED looks at that. Your place may be similar to sustainable sites, water, energy. You have health and happiness. We're really starting to look at how certifications that we'll talk about later fit into the built environment, your materials, and then looking at equity and beauty as well. I wanted to just highlight, I thought, 3 very interesting imperatives that are different from some other certifications. I briefly mentioned the net positive water, but all projects that are pursuing Living Building Challenge have to capture 100% of their water needs through closed loop on-site systems. So that's either capturing rainwater and treating that, using a well, managing water with gray water, potentially using some sort of like dehumidification or atmospheric water generation or source water. Same with energy. All of your energy needs to be produced on site. Most projects are using solar photovoltaics or solar panels. You need to produce more energy than you use over the year. And the one that I think is interesting that Mike spoke to is materials have come a long way. So you can't use any materials that contain a chemical that's on the red list of concern. These are chemicals known to cause human health kind of effects or bad for human health. So really looking at not only the regenerative building, but also healthy for the occupants that are living in those buildings. If you want to kind of get involved with Living Building Challenge or Living Future, you can there's an accreditation process. It's really kind of an educational module you pay, and there's I think 20 different modules you go through, or 16 credits you need to go through, and they have videos. And there's a fast track course now as well. So if you hold like a LEED AP, well AP, you can actually do a fast track course where they give you kind of just the crash course on Living Building Challenge. And it's a way to kind of learn more about that certification. Project that I'll highlight is a project I'm working on right now in Los Angeles. It's a single family home that's pursuing Living Building Challenge in the certification period right now, towards the end of that. So the project is produces more power than it uses with the solar panels. Part of Living Building Challenge requires growing food. So the whole front yard of this is fruit trees, there's raised garden beds, chickens. There's gray water systems that feed all the landscape. This project captures rainwater and also uses atmospheric water generators. Obviously, we live somewhat in a desert here in Los Angeles, so as a backup option, there's machines that can create water out of humid air and use that for the home as well. So very unique certification, and fun to be a part of those. The next one we're going to talk about is BRAM, which is I guess one of the older certifications that we're talking about today. It was founded in 1990 in Europe. It's actually, I found this really interesting. It's the most widely used green building certification, although most of those projects are concentrated in Europe. It's 80% of those. They kind of a comparison versus LEED. In the US right now, the big certification type is as BRAM in use. So focusing on projects that are kind of in operations and maintenance. So looking at the way buildings operate, and there's some performance pieces there. So again, I think there's kind of that common thread between all these certifications, really focusing on, energy and water, materials. BREEAM also looks at your waste, looks at pollution. It plugs in health and well-being, which we'll talk about next. And you're certified on these star-based systems, looking at outstanding being the best, excellent, very good, good, pass, and acceptable. So one thing that's interesting with BREEAM is you have an assessor that comes to your site to verify. Lead is you submit documentation and you have a lead assessor office who reviews your documentation that you submit and make sure that's all acceptable to earn your certification. With BREEAM, you actually have someone come to your site and do a site visit. So a little different. This is an assessor that will come out there and verify that the items and documentation you provided meet the requirements to gain that certification. So you can kind of take two paths to gain more information and get involved with the certification. You can actually become an assessor. It's a 3-day course, and you learn the process, the information, and what you would do to be an assessor on site. It does require some prerequisites, I'll call them, like having multiple years of experience working in the built environments. There's a few prerequisites to take that course, but then you can assess these projects. Or you can become a BREEAM AP and sit through a similar course and learn about the certification and help provide consulting services there. And this is a case study that BREEAM highlighted on their website. It was kind of their award winner for 2020. Very unique commercial office building that sat on top of the London Underground there. So that's a case study project for them.
All right. So next we're going to talk about WELL, which was developed by IWBI, which is the International Well Building Institute. And where the other certifications really focus on the buildings and the materials, WELL really makes sure that the people inside those buildings are being treated well and healthy. One thing about this is it was all based on scientific research to make sure that the features that were built were going to enhance the occupant's health and wellness. It's verified by GBCI, so the same people who do LEED review WELL projects as well. And then there's third-party testing to make sure there's accuracy. And that's apart from IWBI and GBCI. So they really want to make sure they're getting someone else in there to say everything's really happening. There's also the WELL Health Safety Rating, which is a part of WELL that was developed in response to COVID. And then much like the accreditation that you can get with the other ones, you can get that as well with the WELL AP. So all of this goes into making sure that, you can measure and certify the features of the built environment and how that affects occupants' health and well-being. There's several different categories that you can go into. So there's air, water, nourishment, light, movement, thermal comfort, sound, materials, mind, and community. And you'll notice the air and water and the light is kind of similar to LEED and some of the other certifications, but nourishment, thermal comfort is going to focus more on the health and well-being of the occupants. So like I mentioned, there's the performance verification where a third party comes in and makes sure that everything that said is being done is actually being done. And there's quite an extensive documentation process required. There's architectural drawings, there's professional narratives and letters of assurance just to make sure that everything that this building is doing, this company is doing, is documented. And then there's recertification every 3 years, and then annual reporting's required just to make sure that the building and the company is keeping up with what they said they were going to do. One thing is that it is more costly than something like Fitwell, which is a similar certification, but also it involves extensive research and a lot more verification on the performance side. So you can look at the WELL certifications and it's kind of like a tiered approach. You can get preconditions which need to be met, and then the optimizations are where the extra points come in. So there's bronze, silver, gold, and platinum by 40, 50, 60, 180 points. And then here's just an example of some of the features that are required for WELL. You can see which ones are required and which ones are optimization. You can see the air, which is the more technical side. It's going to be more similar to LEED, but then you can see movement, and it's really talking about what physical activity opportunities do these occupants have? What do they have access to outside of their workspace? So it's just going to make sure that everything's very well-rounded, and there's opportunities for occupants that there wouldn't usually be. And then so there's different project types as well. There's multifamily, retail, commercial, and office, and those are going to sort of change how the features look. But all of these have the same preconditions and they have the same features. There's just differentiation in a bit depending on what certification or what project type is being registered. Then I mentioned the WELL Health Safety Rating, which is kind of just a branch off of the WELL certification. It was informed by the WELL standards, so they didn't come up with anything completely new, but they really wanted to design a rating that could be done quickly and make sure that they're getting people back to the places that they love safely. And all of this, again, is backed by science and a lot of research. And this focuses more on like social distancing, enhanced cleaning, and occupant health surrounding COVID-19. These are just some certifications and examples of platinum projects across the world. So you can see on the left, they have lighting, they have a lot of plants in there, they have several different seating arrangements. So these are just some of the things you'll notice as you look through like some WELL certification buildings. And then moving on to Fitwell, like I said, it's kind of similar to WELL in the things it focuses on, but it was actually created by the CDC and U.S. General Services Administration, and their commitment is building healthy for all. It is also backed by academic research studies, and it, like I said, it has the same goal as WELL. It's just not as thorough. This is something that's like cheaper than WELL, and it's not as intensive, but it still has that main goal of making buildings healthier. And then you can become a Fitwell ambassador, which is the professional accreditation. So you can see on the left kind of what it focuses on. There's no prerequisites. There's more flexibility, and like I mentioned, it's less rigorous and technical. So you can benchmark or you can get the certification. And what's really great about Fitwell is it's accessible, it's affordable, and especially for a company that's new to kind of the sustainability certifications, it's a great starting point to get to the healthy interior space, but not be overwhelmed by the extensive documentation that WELL requires. And then Fitwell has a star rating, so you'll see 1, 2, or 3 stars, and that depends on the amount of features you go after and how many points you get. So it's just it's the same thing based on points, but it just has stars rather than the gold, platinum, silver. And then these are some certifications around the world. Again, you can kind of see they're just in general nice buildings, but you can just see like down here, it'll have the different building types, and so you can research more of that on their website as well.
Okay, so unlike the other certifications that were mentioned, GRESB is a rating system. So it was founded in the Netherlands, formerly known as the Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark. and it helps real estate investors assess the sustainability performance of commercial real estate portfolios around the world. Every year, around April, GRESB issues its survey asking about things like energy and water usage, as well as carbon output. They're also interested in things like how well you treat and train your employees, and money from endowments, pension funds, as well as private and public investors. They really look to GRESB's annual survey as the barometer of a company's sustainability performance. And in 2019 alone, over 1,000 properties representing over 100,000 assets and more than $4.5 trillion in assets under management participated in GRESB. So every year, more companies are disclosing ESG performance. So the competition is really growing. And when you complete the survey, there's actually an added benefit of the ability to evaluate, understand, and really improve the performance of your portfolio. So as you can see, GRESB's scoring is out of 100%. And it evaluates commercial real estate businesses' performance in management and performance indicators. These indicators include, energy and greenhouse gas emissions. And companies really need to understand what ESG efforts are material to their business, because if they don't, it can actually have a negative impact on your organization's financial valuation. And GRESB's focus is environmental performance with social and governance included in the approach. So if we go to the next slide, we can see Kilroy's benchmark rating. And the results are actually several pages long, but this is just a snapshot of the first page and covers things like the GRESB score and historical participation. And if you can see over on the right underneath the score, you see management and policy over there at the bottom, which can be interpreted as a leading indicator, providing information about leadership and direction of the organization. And implementation and measurement right above can be interpreted as a lagging indicator. So providing information on actions and performance over the previous year. And if you go to the next page, I think you all have access to this. You can see Kilroy's full benchmark report, how to read a GRESB scorecard, and just learn more about it in general. So going on to Energy Star Portfolio Manager, it's an online tool and it's used to measure and track energy and water consumption, as well as greenhouse gas emissions just from a building's utility bills. So using this information, Energy Star then measures the performance of a building against the national average for similar building types, and then they apply a rating from 0 to 100. So it's used to benchmark the performance of one building or a whole portfolio of buildings, all in a secure online environment. So using the 1 to 100 Energy Star score, you can understand how a building's energy consumption measures up against similar buildings nationwide. A score of 50, it means it performs better than 50% of its peers. And obviously higher scores mean better energy efficiency, resulting in less energy used and fewer greenhouse gas emissions. And if you see over there in the corner, you see if you see a blue Energy Star mark, the building has earned Energy Star certification. So it means it has a score of 75 or better and has been verified to perform among the top 25% of similar buildings nationwide. So if you go to the next slide, you can see some examples of what the score does and doesn't do. These include things, what the score does, it evaluates actual build energy data. It compares buildings to the national population and indicates the level of energy performance. Some things that the score doesn't do, It doesn't credit specific technologies. It doesn't compare buildings with others in portfolio manager, or explain specifically why a building performs well or poorly. And you can see some more reporting as well. On average, Energy Star certified buildings, they use 35% less energy, and they generate 35% fewer greenhouse gas emissions than their peers. You can also use the Energy Star score. It satisfies the LEED for existing buildings, operations and management requirements, and it communicates the energy performance to tenants, owners, and potential buyers or renters. And this slide right here, you can learn more about Energy Star.
And then last but not least, we have eco districts. So it's built on 6 priorities, and a lot of it has to do with really building communities and making sure that communities are sustainable. So like I mentioned, there's place, prosperity, health and well-being, connectivity, living infrastructure, and resource restoration. And much like the other certifications, it's an Eco Districts AP, accredited professional. So this really focuses on the opportunity that a community has, the health and wellness of communities, the ecosystems that are within those communities, but also reserving the communities that were originally there, not going in and, just building whatever. It's really about like keeping these communities in place and then kind of nurturing them to become vibrant. So the certification process is basically you register, you make an imperatives commitment, and then you have your formation and your roadmap, which is essentially putting out what you're going to do to ensure that this community is preserved. And then you have your performance, which is after you receive your certification, which is kind of that laying out that process of what's going to happen. And then within 2 years of your certification, that's when they kind of check everything and make sure that what you said you're doing is actually what's being done. And then here's just a little bit more on the priorities. You'll see, a common theme of them is air, water, and waste. But this also takes into account the ecosystem health, the connection that people have to nature, how the street networks work, the mobility for people to get around, the safety that's available in the area, the food systems that are available, and then just the access to opportunity, what economic development is going on in that community, and then what's their culture and identity, and how are they engaging with that, and how are they including people in that. And then here we go into the imperatives. So these are kind of the three major tiers that they look at. So there's equity, there's resilience, and there's climate protection. So you can kind of see that in the priorities, they go into those 3 things, but this is just the overarching imperatives that the Eco Districts certification branches off from. And then here's some of the certifications. You can kind of see that, they can be very dense populations, but there's a lot of green space. There's places where people can gather. And you can see, it looks like the original buildings. It's not like they came in and tore everything down and built a bunch of new stuff to make it a community. These are just things that were there, and they enhanced that for the people living there. And then that is it.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're happy to answer any questions for the last few minutes. I know Mike mentioned at the beginning, obviously this presentation doesn't cover every certification out there. There's many more. One that's you can learn more about is Passive House, which is actually has a booth at a conference today. And there's more popping up all the time. So it's an awesome opportunity to get involved, both as a accredited professional, or if you're interested in developing buildings that take advantage of these, there's another awesome opportunity there as well. So I think we have a few more minutes in our session. We're happy to field any questions. You can either unmute yourself and ask them to us that way, or type anything in the chat. Otherwise, we may maybe ending a few minutes early so people can get to their next sessions, or have a little bit of a lunch in between the next sessions in the day.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody attending, especially on a Saturday.
Yes, definitely. And obviously we mentioned in the beginning, we're all the co-chairs for the Emerging Professionals Committee, and if people are interested in getting involved, we're definitely there's a resource. Put on cool events. So feel free. I think Mike dropped his email into the chat box, so if you want to learn more that way, we're definitely available to answer questions.
We got a question. I can try to answer it. So Melody asked, what's the best to pursue if making a career change to sustainability? I think we'd all agree that it really depends what you're interested in. It depends what do you care about the health and wellness of occupants? Do you care about the sustainable materials that they put into buildings? A lot of people, jump in and get their LEED AP and well AP, but it's going to be difficult to gain experience and kind of learn about it if you're not interested in it, because I can say from firsthand experience, like if you're not interested in LEED, it's not going to be a fun time. So I would just say, think about what you're interested in. Are you more interested in occupants' health? Or are you more interested in the sustainable materials that people are using? And then you can kind of go from there. LEED and well, I would say, are the branching off points. And then you can kind of go into other, like the other certifications that we talked about, if anyone wants to add in. I mean, LEED's great. I didn't mean in any way to say don't get LEED.
I was about to take my blank down totally.
One thing I'll say is you start with your LEED GA, and I think the LEED Green Associate is interesting because it's not as rigorous, but it really gives you kind of like a core background of just why we're building green buildings, talking about some of the science behind it. It gives you stats and information on the industry as a whole. So, if you're interested in just learning, I think that's a great place to start. They do touch on some of the aspects of all these other certifications. So you might take that and then realize, oh, I definitely want to pursue health and well-being and get my well AP, or want to get my Living Future accreditation. So that's another, easy way to start and get kind of a baseline information, not just on the certification, but really kind of green building as a whole. The LEED AP is much more like dive into the weeds of LEED, know the point thresholds, know the credits, requires a lot of studying. So the GA is a easier, more kind of a knowledge-based way to start. There's a question about what are you finding are companies' motivations for using these certifications? For my experience, I think it's some of it's driven by, like Mike talked about, certain cities are requiring LEED. There's some tax benefits, like in Nevada, if you build LEED buildings, you can get a tax abatement. A lot of companies standardize, saying they're going to use a green building spec or require LEED silver across all of their developments. And then you have those that want to do it just because they want to have a green building, and it's a third-party verified way to have that. With well, obviously, like there's a huge benefits for the occupants, and 90% of your expenditure as a business is on salaries. So if you're able to build great places for people to work and occupy and live, like you're going to get more productivity, you're going to have a higher quality of life. So there's a huge value there. So it definitely varies. Sometimes you have the carrot, sometimes you have the stick, people really wanting to do it or being required to do it, maybe based on regulations in that area from like development agreements.
Yeah, it varies. There's, I mean, I'm in the position I'm now after 30 years in the industry because I want to take care of our company and our staff. And one of the ways we can do that, especially coming out of a pandemic, is pursuing some certification so people feel safe to come back to work.
We got another question about, can you speak to how to have your project accepted by WELL to earn building credits by having your product? So right now there aren't any products that are approved for WELL, much like LEED products like aren't approved and then put into the standard by any means. They can contribute to getting points for the certification. But to do that, you would need to submit the documentation with whatever feature it pertains to. And then if it's accepted by GBCI, then in a way, I guess that product is approved, but there's no way to take a product to IWBI. I don't exactly know how it is for LEED, but there's no way to take a product to IWBI and say, I want this certified. If you were doing a certification for yourself, you could mention the product in the documentation for whichever feature, and then in that sense it'll get approved, if that makes sense. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, and for all products used in the building, you've got to turn in submittals on what it is, but it's not brand names they're looking for. They're looking for percent of
The specs,
whatever.
yeah.
Any other questions people have? Yeah, I think the accreditations are great because they're an awesome opportunity for you to learn more about the rating systems, but they're also a kind of differentiator if you're looking both to get into the industry, kind of expand, if you're looking for jobs in the industry, it definitely is something that I think employers, look to and say, oh, do they have a living or LEED AP or WELL AP? The other question is, Living Building Challenge the only certification for residential? Nope. And Living Building Challenge also works on all project types. So I just only works on a residential one, but it works on, there's a project in Santa Monica that's, it's a city services building that's pursuing Living Building Challenge. There's lots of office spaces. LEED has a rating system, LEED for homes. Passive House, which we didn't cover in detail, but is available. That one is really focused on residential and looking at passive ways to heat and cool homes.
They have a commercial side as well. But
yeah, exactly. They are on the commercial side as well. I believe WELL and Fitwell do not do residential, but I see Jennifer.
Well, yeah. WELL announced that they were going to have a home certification at the end of last year. So I think that's supposed to either come at the end of this year or next year at some point. So like Jen said, they have an advisory right now. They're trying to get that together to see what that looks like, but it will be available in the next couple of years to get your home WELL certified.
Very cool. So yeah, so
which will probably, the target market for that is large home builders, I imagine, not individual homeowners.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, a lot of these certifications scale and focus on single family homes, but a lot of them are targeted multifamily homes. So there are people that do a one-off LEED certified home, but mostly you see LEED certified homes be multifamily unit complexes. Yes, they all kind of scale up and down to different types of buildings, which is great. That allows you to then, whatever building type you're doing, you can apply that certification criteria to all those building types. Great questions. Any other ones that that come to mind that people are interested in, or people heard about certifications that we haven't mentioned that we'd love to learn from you guys as well. If there's ones out there that people are familiar with that weren't covered today.
I believe you guys can unmute yourselves if you want as well. We
Well,
can
cool,
have
like you said.
4-minute staring contest.
Well, I think we are all muted. Maybe people can't speak. Well, like we said, I think the session ends at 12:35. So, we're happy to give people a few minutes before their next session's back. Like we said, we're all part of the Emerging Professionals Committee. This was actually, similar to an event we put on a few months ago. We put on events that, had professionals come on and provide kind of job guidance and ways to break into the sustainability industry. We've had speakers from amazing companies come in and talk about their pathways and how they broke into the industry, what they're doing. So our goal is really just to help kind of educate that, next generation of sustainability professionals, learning from the amazing professionals that are currently in the industry and helping us kind of foster that next generation. So, keep an eye out on the USGBCLA website for our events. And I think, our emails are available. If you ever want to reach out to any of us, we're always happy to chat and, plug you in to the committee, and then also anything USGBCLA related. Awesome. So the closing keynote starting now. I think there's a link there if you want to hop into that. But we thank everyone for their time. Enjoy the last keynote. The website. Yeah, I think I can just drop the website link in here. Maybe.
Yeah. You can click it right from the chat. I just did, and it just opened.
Oh, great. You sent it in there? Oh, the link. Perfect. Yeah, the keynote's in there, and then all great information on USGBCLA. I'll drop that link in. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time. Enjoy the keynote, and have a great rest of your weekend.
All right.
Hi, everyone. Have a great
Thanks,
weekend.
guys.
Thank you.
All
See you
right.
later.
Thank you.